transmission by me, Donald Deneen. Make me an island.
Drop it all in a second to see the side. Move every rock from your entrance and vanish night. There's no point in dissecting wrong from right. It's all looking so reductive in this life. You're about to ignite, and we're all ready for it. You're about to ignite, and we're all ready for it. I'll drop it all in a second to see you shine. Move every rock from your entrance and vanish night. There's no point in dissecting wrong from right. It's all looking so reductive in your You're about to ignite, and we're all ready for it. You're about to ignite, and we're all ready for it. You're about to ignite, and we're all ready for it. You're about to ignite.
I must say, I like the idea of a tune called Ignite getting the fire started here on the May Bank Holiday Make Me an Island special. And you're very welcome to the show. That was Elaine Howley, and you might know Elaine from her work with The Altered Hours or Howlbox with Irene Buckley, or indeed Crevice. And I've seen her play with all three configurations and do some amazing solo shows on her own, the most recent of which was at the last Jazz Festival in Cork at the Kino with Fixity, an absolutely amazing gig. So that tune, Ignite, you'll find on Bandcamp on an LP called The 343, which is a compilation of some amazing new Irish music, some of which from Natalia Baylis and Rising Damp will be featuring on future editions of Make Me an Island. Before I go on today, as you can probably guess from the opening tune, it's a slightly different line of investigation we're going to be taking today, and it's going to be the second in our Make Me an Islander series, and I will tell you all about our very special guest in just a moment. But before that, I have a little bit of housekeeping to do, and anybody who knows me will know just how much I love housekeeping. So on that point, firstly, there has, I'm sure you're painfully aware, the lockdown's been extended to May 18th, and therefore this show will continue. And if you would like to support the show and me, then you can do so on Patreon. And among my many problems is my inability to say my name, but it is Donal Dineen, and so that's where you'll find me on Patreon. And then also, actually, if you're listening to the show and simply because the staff failed to turn off your podcast machine and you have a spare boat or even a small boat, then you can get in touch at donal@makemeanisland.ie. And some of the great revolutions have begun with the borrowing of boats. And a transmitter too, and an aerial, by the way. So donal@makemeanisland.ie if you want to get in touch. And I want to thank very much my producer, Ian Cudmore. He is, in fact, the Taoiseach when it comes to the Make Me an Island cabinet, and the minister responsible for making silk purses out of sows' ears. So thanks very much, Ian. And one of the things I want to point you in the direction of is something that's happening. If you're listening today, Sunday, nobody knows, let's face it, what day it is anymore. But this is, as I'm speaking right now, a beautiful Sunday morning in Dublin City. And tonight at 10 p.m. Central European time, or 5 p.m. New York time, the Irish Arts Centre, along with This Ain't No Disco, is hosting a concert by the great Junior Brother. And so, yeah, 10 p.m. Irish time, and you can find the link on the Junior Brother page or on This Ain't No Disco. And speaking of This Ain't No Disco, we set up it in 2017, myself and Miles O'Reilly, but the genesis of the idea goes back a few years before to 2014, and it was at that time that a few things happened, as well as being a pretty tough year in lots of ways. There were some great things happened. Well, primarily Kerry won the All-Ireland for the last time, and then there was also, we went to the Willie Clancy in Milltown Malbay, and we made a little film there, which you can find on the YouTube, and also Lynched released Cold Old Fire. And all those moments are significant in different ways, because over the past while, in the past few weeks here on Make Me an Island, I've been talking about various conditions in which revolutions in music occurred in all sorts of places around the world. But over the past 6 years, starting in 2014, I've been very aware that there's a revolution happening in this country, and it's been wave after wave of amazing music. Central to all of that has been the sound of Lancome and Radie Peat, and I'm delighted to say that Radie is my guest on Make Me an Island today. And as well as being the greatest in terms of musician and singer, she's also probably the most humble, and she has a finely tuned bullshit detector, just like the concertina. So I'm not going to go on too much, except to say that she's on the line, and she's going to be my co-pilot on the show today. I have been getting amazing correspondence from people all over the world. Reminds me of being back on the radio for the first time, and just that mind-blowing fact of being part of people's days, evenings, mornings, whatever, in various places. So I just want to dedicate this next song to you. And if, like here in Dublin, the sunshine is general right now, then I hope you're enjoying it. If there are any clouds, the De Zurich sisters are here to blow them away, and they're good with blowing away cobwebs as well, by the way.
Way out in Arizona, in a town they call Winona, where the folks you meet all know a thing or two. Lived a lad of great ambition, who had set as his life's mission to excel upon his ugly day. And he played a little tune on his Spanish guitar. He'd mingle with the song the sweet refrain. In the evening in the cactus, he would get a lot of practice on his as his cattle he was trailing, you would always hear him wailing on his Once a big shot from the city heard him warbling the ditty, and accompanied with a Then he said, look here, my sonny, you can make a lot of money with the and he played a little tune on his Spanish guitar. He'd mingle with the song the sweet refrain. Then our hero took the tip and packed his whip and took a trip and soon was singing o'er the radio to you. If the Swiss heard what he's earning, green with envy they'd be turning when he soon he met a little maiden who with talent who was laden, and she fell for him like flowers for the dew. And he wished not to evade her, and he used to serenade her with his yodel-dee-da-day. And he played a little tune on his Spanish guitar. He'd mingle with the song the sweet refrain.
Hopefully one of these days I'm going to wake up and the world's going to look like that sounds, but it could be a while. That's the Zurich sisters and the Arizona yodeler. Radie, Peat, thank you very much for joining us on Make Me an Island, and for telling me about the album that's taken from Mata La Pena.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I got told about that album by a good friend that I'll probably talk about later, because there's another track off that compilation that I think I've picked to play on the show. It's an amazing compilation, though. That record label, Mississippi Records, are the ones who put out Abner J as well, and I just think they have amazing taste, you know.
Yeah, and they do it in a way that even though they, that ethnic music collection, the Secret Museum of Mankind, there's 8 volumes of it, and like it's put together in a very idiosyncratic yet really beautiful and believable way. And I think sometimes labels that reissue stuff can kind of get lost in the detail, but I just love what they do. And that compilation, actually, when you recommended it, Radie, went on to Bandcamp, and it's there. You can actually, it's one of those ones that you can and pay what you can afford. But I really recommend it, Mata La Pena.
Yeah, I actually only heard the whole compilation maybe 3 weeks ago for the first time, and it's just amazing. Every track is so different, and it's just like it's a real it's a good brain holiday from what's going on at the moment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's on that bombshell. I think that's something that is really needed. And when I listen to that music on that collection and the stuff that's in that the Secret Museum of Mankind collection, it's amazing to listen to stuff that's unaffected by anything to do with the modern world, and that includes like any kind of ideas of a music business or anything to do with performing your music for anything other than the pure joy of it. And to hear it, particularly in this time, it's amazing to be able to go there.
Yeah, it's just it all feels very honest, the whole thing, but I think their motivations, like as a label, from what I've heard about them as people and as a label, just seems to be total just pure the music as well. Like love of the music. Sorry, like I don't think they're a commercial enterprise really at all. I think they just love unearthing these things and want people to hear them. It's the impression I get.
Absolutely, and I think that same here. Radie, just on in terms of what's happening, you just before all of this kicked off, you were at the beginning really of what was planned to be a long time in the States. Am I right? With Lancome.
Not particularly a long time in the States. Was I think just over 2 weeks in the States, but it was the start of like a lot of touring, a load of gigs, but with Lancome and a few solo things lined up as well. So that was kind of us going back to work, having taken a bit of time off. I, as usual, didn't actually take time off at all and did a load of gigs just on my own. But that was kind of the start of us doing months and months touring, and like it was a strange experience for the penny to drop about what was happening in the world while on tour, because you're kind of in a bubble, you know what I mean? Like you're not interacting with the same people every day, and you're not in the same place every day, and you kind of live in this bubble in the van. And so I think it actually took a while for it to sink in with us what was happening. And it also felt really weird being in America, because I felt like this was very kind of apocalyptic. Loads of the stuff about this just felt like a film anyway. Especially seeing all these like kind of empty streets and like just the feeling. And all of those films I've ever seen, like post-apocalyptic films, I've always thought to myself, like, okay, so rule number one is don't be in America. Like, don't end up in America if it's the end of the world, because
Yeah.
it just seems like a bad place to be. And then I was looking around going like, ah, shit, I'm in America. Um, and there was just loads of mad stuff happening as well. Like our flight home got cancelled, you know, and there was a bit of kind of racing around trying to get people on kind of changed flights home and stuff.
Hmm.
It got I certainly will never forget it.
Yeah.
You know, I'll never forget that
So
tour.
you were really on the cusp of that sort of closing down of the airports, and or rather it becoming almost impossible to get flights. And thankfully you all made it back. So you all made it back and stayed together then for 14 days.
No, we made it back and we had to separate then.
Okay.
So, cause, you know, because not all of us live in Dublin these days and stuff. And so what
Yeah.
we did was yeah, we just went to our houses and basically, yeah,
Quarantine.
like really self-isolated, yeah,
Hmm.
for 14 days because we were
Hmm.
like, we had been everywhere. Like the last thing you should be doing during something like this is
Yeah.
being on tour. You know, there
Yeah.
was just no way you could follow the guidelines. So luckily, none of us ever got any symptoms or anything. So that was,
Yeah.
you know, once we were home 2 weeks, we were like, okay, well, now it's just whatever we've interacted with since we got home. But this is the longest I've ever not seen the lads for in,
Yeah.
I don't know, 10 years, maybe eight
Yeah.
years. I don't know. And it's funny, like I've never been able to miss them before, but I miss them now, you know, actually really
Uh,
miss them.
well, I can imagine. But the thing is, Radie, I was thinking about your situation today, obviously, before talking to you, and I suppose the main thing I think is that you were lucky that you had time to make an impact with the live long day and do all of that and bring it to a level that was just incredible. And it was an intense thing that happened to be to to go from that peak to being separated and alone for a while. But I hope that,
For sure,
now
but
that
we are so lucky that we got to do it, though.
yeah.
You know, when I think of bands that you know, we're maybe in the middle of recording or we're just about to release something, or
Yeah.
you know, um, like that must be heartbreaking. We are so lucky that
Hmm.
we got to release this, and we even got to tour it and play it for people or
Hmm.
whatever. Like, you know, that like so many people are not getting to do that, and they probably don't know when they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And at that point, you've already poured all your money into making it, and you know, printing the vinyl and doing the whole thing, and then you're suddenly just like at this standstill, and
Yeah.
you can't do it the way you wanted to, and that's heartbreaking. I really, my heart goes out to people who are in that situation at the moment, and I feel very lucky that we got to release it the way we had intended. You know.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely true, and I think we're lucky too that you got to release it and tour it. I'll just say on a personal thing about the Live Long Day was it's been a long time since the release of an album made me want to go see every show that you played, and I managed sort of I think four full shows in a row. But back to the point of, and it was good for me personally that that I could relive those dreams of sort of motorway dreams of going following a band around. But across those four shows, there was never a bad moment, and I think you just brought it to a level in terms of what you can do within the group. That you could feel very satisfied that you got to that point, and whatever happens next, obviously, I can't wait to hear that. But I'm really happy that you got to do that. I do feel though that there's such a sea change that in terms of speaking in general terms away from Lancome, there are so many artists in this country, musicians who have dreams are been dashed, at a point where
Yeah.
it's very hard to see how, there's discussing a way back is kind of where we're at right now, right?
Yeah, and like it's really awful because you're right. Like the amount of amazing people like producing like just wonderful work, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it was already hard being, you know, a musician. And in a way, like we're almost well geared for it because like we're used to being broke and we're used to not having much stability and sporadic kind of money and all that kind of stuff. But in another way, it's even more heartbreaking, you know, because you've been slogging at it for years, and then something like this comes and it's like a bolt out of the blue, and you're like, well, how are you supposed to make it work now?
Mm-hmm.
But I think people will, you know, I
Yeah.
think, uh, like apart from like, I think we've an amazing caliber of musicianship in Ireland, but I also think we're very resourceful about getting the stuff out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and letting people hear it. So I think people just need to or not need to. I think people will come up with ways of getting the stuff out and making the whole thing kind of tick over again,
Yeah,
because all anyone really cares about, I suppose, at the end of the day is like getting to make what they want to make and getting to show it to people. So,
yeah.
you know,
And also, I mean, staying on the bright side for a minute, I think the artistic responses to such a, I mean, it's at times like these we need the artist most of all, and it's obviously, a case in point that this is one thing that's going to inspire a lot of people to make amazing work too, and to do things, that maybe they previously wouldn't have tried. In your own case, Radie, there being, the first opportunity to really to rest, I suppose, for a long time. How is that going for you? I mean, is that a welcome? That must be a welcome thing.
it is like I definitely have never had this long a rest in, or not never. I mean, I haven't had this long a rest in, I'd say, about 4 or 5 years. And in ways that's been like brilliant because, I hadn't realized that I do keep myself kind of under pressure to do things and to do them well. And like, even just like gigs, interviews, all that kind of stuff, there's just
Yeah,
this kind of low level, like, get the job done and do it well and stuff, kind of personal standards thing. And I hadn't realized that I was just kind of constantly under that pressure. And now that I'm not under it and I can be as useless as I want every day,
yeah,
that's really relaxing. So that side of it's been great. But the other side is that, like, you can't control what kind of brain you have. And I have sometimes a bit of like I annoy myself, but I definitely have to keep doing things. So I've been working on a lot of solo material at the moment,
hmm,
and I've been trying to expand my music theory knowledge. So I've been studying music theory books as well. I've also been like trying to make clothes. I've been altering all my clothes. I've been cooking loads. I've been, you know what I mean? Like, just I don't sit still well. Do you know what I
hmm,
mean? But it's just kind of doing different things, and it is lovely to have that kind of brain space to just think about things and to just be like, and also to just be like, okay, I'm not feeling great today, and you know what? I don't actually have to do anything, and just be like, right, today's cancelled.
yeah,
Like, I'll think about it tomorrow, because that's not usually an option in
hmm.
my normal life. It's real, like, you can he could wake up and not feel like doing something, but it doesn't matter. You still have to do,
Yeah,
seven
like
things,
one
do
of
them
those
well.
things that really struck me when seeing all those shows last year was just the extent to which you have to strive to meet that standard every day, where it's not automatic for the people or anything like that. So I'm really glad to hear that all of that stuff's happening. What sort of music books, Brady, have you been reading?
I have been reading. They're called. I won't be able to remember the publishing house or anything. They're called the A B of Music Theory, and one's pink and one's blue. So the first one, part one, is pink, and part two is blue. And they were recommended to me by a load of musician friends. And it basically just takes you from absolutely no prior knowledge of music theory to about like what a level of I think about grade 8.
Hmm.
um, so it's fascinating. I've never actually had the time to sit down and like really look at that as much. Like, I have my own kind of system for how I understand it, and like I have,
Hmm.
obviously understanding of it, but I've never, because I didn't do classical music, like I didn't do from like this point to this point and all the bits in between.
Hmm.
So I've been filling in the blanks, and it's been fascinating. I'm sure I'm annoying everybody though, because the only way I can, because you read it, like when I read it, I'm like, right, okay, I wonder what that means. So I have to go and play it. And the only thing I can play on in the house with two hands, that's kind of like a piano, is I have this little like mouth blown melodica. So I just walk around the house with my music theory books and my melodica, playing these really like disjointed intervals and chord sequences. And I'd say everyone in the house wants to kill me at this point.
That sounds like a beautiful thing. And come here, Rady, what's the pink and blue? Is there any reason for that? No.
For
Well,
the
no.
colors.
Well, actually,
No.
no, probably not. I actually just read something recently about pink was originally the boy's color and blue. Did you know that?
What,
That
gender wise, it used to be reversed.
Yeah, it was reversed. Yeah, I think something to do with
Um,
Roosevelt's
Weird,
wife
isn't it?
wearing a dress that she wore at the inauguration. This is this may not be true, but that is something that could be true. I know, but the books. So basically, is there like are they a volume, or anyway? It's just two books on theory. There's no real the pink and blue thing doesn't mean anything.
There's no, sorry, say again?
The pink and blue doesn't really signify anything. They're just two books on the same. It's just two volumes of the same issue on the same topic.
Yeah, like I don't think the colors have any significance.
Okay.
Just the pink one is part A, and
Yeah.
the blue one's part B. So it's a bit like blue is the harder one, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And you've moved on to you've gone to the second one at this point.
I have, yeah, I have. But I've been cherry picking as well, like I'm a demon for being like, yeah, I don't care about this.
Yeah.
Just like move
And
on
are
and
there
like
things
show me
that
the
just
weird chord.
that completely blow your mind that you had previously no idea about?
Well, I realized that I really like this thing that don't ask me to explain it now, but it used to be called The Devil in Music. And it's a combination of notes within a scale, and I realized that I actually really like that, and I had used it before, and I was like, oh, because it was called The Devil in Music because it was considered very unsatisfactory to the ear back in the day,
Okay.
but a lot of metal bands use it.
Oh, right. Wow,
So
that
there you go.
without
There's a
going
nugget.
any further, that explains a multitude. So let's jump on to our topic of the day, Radie, which is to talk about some key points, musical points in for yourself, right? So we're going to start with Karen Dalton, and yeah. Anyway, maybe you could tell me why we're going to start there.
Well, so yeah, like you gave me the impossible task of picking
Yeah, sorry
only a
about that.
few tracks that were meant to be like formative
Well, we
tracks.
can do a
So
second part, but anyway, that's sorry
yeah,
about that.
we'd need to do about, a year.
A pink and a blue
Just
version.
yeah, basically. It's really hard to pick, it really is. So I wanted to pick things that I have never played before on something, like
Yeah.
on a kind of on a show before, and that I haven't gotten to really talk about much before. So the Karen Dalton one is more kind of because I wanted to do a combination of tracks that have really kind of piqued my interest over the last couple of years and recently, and also ones that would have had like like a part in forming the music I
Yeah.
make, at kind of key points, like kind of formative musical moments for me in my life. And so Karen Dalton is kind of an interesting one because a couple of years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I got much more into traditional singing than I had been. I started researching songs a lot more, and I got into two kind of offshoots of it more than others. One was the style of traveller singing in Ireland and England, and the other one was Appalachian singing, so the American tradition. And I got really fascinated by both those specific variances of traditional singing. And so when I was really getting into the Appalachian stuff, I'd never been to America at all, and actually started playing five-string banjo, and I started listening to people like Gene Ritchie and Hedy West and Karen Dalton, because actually an old friend of mine, Jem Mitchell, who is a phenomenal singer himself, he's one of my favorite voices of all time. He told me once, he was like, "Have you ever heard this woman, Karen Dalton? Because you remind me of her." And I hadn't. So I went
Hmm.
home and I listened to her, and I didn't think I sounded like her at all, and I still don't. But Jesus, it really struck me. I was like, wow, that is beautiful, like, and weird and beautiful and kind of harsh and like just,
Hmm.
really good. So I thought she was like this track as well. She's playing the banjo. I love the way she plays the banjo in it. I love the singing in it. This is a traditional song she's singing as well. But I'm picking her as one of an example of a load of different kind of old time singers
Yeah.
that really kind of got me really obsessed with it years ago, and I think that my own singing borrows quite a bit actually from Appalachian singing, in terms of like tone and maybe like volume and stuff. But yeah, so this is like, this was a big moment for me when I heard this track, and also Katie Cruel from Karen Dalton.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks, Radie. Let's hear it. Same Old Man by Karen Dalton.
walk the walk, standing in the rain in her Macintosh. Same old lady standing in the rain. I thought New York was going insane. Hey, little leaf laying on the ground. Now you're turning slightly brown. Why don't you get up on the tree? Turn the color green the way you want me. My mind is fading, my body grows weak. Lips won't form the words I'll speak. I'm floating away on a parallel plane. New York City won't see me again. Same old man sitting by the mill wheel turning of its own free will. I'm certainly glad to be at home. New York City continues all alone.
That's Karen Dalton, Same Old Man. There's a lot of pain in the voice, isn't there, Radie? I mean, she had a really tough life, and I think you
Yeah.
can really hear that in everything she had recorded.
Yeah, and I think that might be something that I'm really drawn to actually in people's music. Like you did an episode of this on Adner J, and I think you can really hear his hard life and his singing. And I'm a big fan of Jackson C. Frank as well. Same thing. I think you can really hear life lived. And there's a you know that Moondog track, Do
Hmm.
Your Thing. I cry every time I hear it
Yeah, I love
because of his
Moondog.
life and
Yeah,
the combination of so there's something about like that, like the actual person's life kind of impacting how you hear their music that
yeah,
that certainly gets me emotionally. And Karen Dalton is definitely one of those. I kind of always view Karen Dalton and Jackson C. Frank as male and female versions of each other almost.
yeah.
Like I always draw parallels between them just for being kind of outsiders and just having a really rough life. And of course,
Hmm.
both of them died homeless and stuff. Like all that kind of stuff that
Yeah, and
there are
you know,
actually
from
similarities.
from the reports that are there, her life even before she came to New York. I mean, she had by
She'd already
21
been divorced or something by the time
twice,
she's not, yeah,
twice,
by
and there were like,
19.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of conjecture about her life, but just on the point of the fact that the biographical detail, it's not surprising how difficult how challenging her life was, but also, isn't there something that you can hear in a voice without any of that information that kind of imparts something to do with a deeper emotion or something? There's something very clearly ringing out in her voice. I don't know. It's the way that
Yeah,
it shines so brightly for some people. I mean, it's a beacon, really, isn't it?
I think it's to do with honesty or something when you're singing. I don't mean to get too theoretical about it, but like I think what's striking about her voice is that she's not actually trying to make it sound palatable,
Hmm.
really.
Yeah.
She's just singing the way she feels like singing, and there's something about that I think really it's very emotive because you're not distracted by these kind of layers of aesthetic that someone's putting on their voice or anything. You feel like they're not trying to be good.
Hmm.
They're just trying to sing it. Um,
Isn't that the kind of thing that I was saying about those recordings in that the Mississippi Records collection
yeah,
of the ethnic music that from the 20s and 30s and 40s is that unaffected spirit in the recordings. That there's no dilution, there's no artifice, there's nobody trying to be anything except being themselves. And I guess that's the kernel of truth that's in that music that keeps us going back to it.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it's definitely that would be a massive element that I find really appealing. You know what I mean? In music. At the same time, I also love some really polished, produced stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So there's the full spectrum, but like I think there's something really for getting emotional responses. It certainly kind of cuts to that a lot faster, I think.
Yeah. On the subject of polished, produced stuff, Radie, maybe it's time to start talking about the great Scott Walker. Do you want to introduce this one?
Yeah, so Scott Walker, I had never really listened to Scott Walker, and it was my bandmate Cormac Dermody who he just got really obsessed with Scott Walker a couple of years ago, a good few years ago now, and we were housemates at the time, and he kept talking to me about Scott Walker. But so this is one of the ones it's a more recent kind of addition to my musical world, and it's an example of like I'm sure like you. I am constantly just looking for new music that makes me really excited about music. You know what I mean? Like it's a proper like it's an addiction. It's a
Yeah.
complete obsession. You know, like and if I haven't found something that really gets me in a long time, I get very sad actually. So I have to kind of go looking for it. So this was one of the ones that like I was giddy when I heard this the first time. Like I remember I was in my kitchen, and because I was trying to remember, I was like, what was that amazing soundtrack that Scott Walker did not that long ago, and there's this really dramatic opening in it, and yeah, so and I went online, I found this, and I was like, that's it. And as soon as it started, I was jumping around the kitchen, I was so excited. Now a lot of people tell me, and this is, I will say, just warning before this is played, because I know a few people that whenever I try play this, they leave the room because they're like, this is making me super anxious, why are you playing this? This makes me, like it's meant to make you feel anxious.
Yeah.
And isn't it amazing how well it works?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
like it really does the job it's meant to do here, and I find that kind of exciting. But it is a bit like an aural panic attack. Just fair warning.
Yeah.
And it's from the soundtrack "Childhood of a Leader" that he did couple of years ago.
Yeah, and this is in from 2015. He died when, 2 years ago, or it was not, in the not too recent past anyway. But
recently enough. So this was one of his last soundtracks.
Yeah, and I suppose another thing to say before hearing it is that this is like a 60s boy band. He was a pop star in ways that his artistic integrity is just astonishing. That this is the kind of sound that he's making at the end of his career. I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is Opening by Scott Walker. So it's from the soundtrack to the film The Childhood of a Leader. That's by Scott Walker, and that's the opening from the same. Incredibly dramatic music. I mean, it leaves no room for argument, and yeah, the trigger warning. That's good, Radie. I'm just laughing at the idea of it making you
Yeah.
giddy. It's brilliant that you could react to in such a way. But it's all encompassing, that isn't it?
That track makes me so excited.
Yeah,
Like I find it's very exciting. Like,
yeah,
there's just so much going on. But I can totally understand how some people don't maybe find that difficult to listen to. I think sometimes the more you listen to music, and sometimes if you play music and make music, like you're kind of looking for things
yeah.
that are quite extreme and that are confusing, and that, you know what I mean? Like you kind of end up looking for kind of weird stuff sometimes
Uh-huh.
to kind
I
of
mean,
satisfy an itch.
sure, yeah, and I mean, it takes all sorts, right? I mean, there's so many colors in the rainbow. But just on the Scott Walker point, um, just what I was saying about the integrity thing, Radie, that like, there aren't that many examples. When I was reading about him today, he just reminded me of Mark Hollis. I don't know if you know Mark Hollis, who died
I
tragically
don't
last
know.
year. Well, he had a band called Talk Talk, who were like. Had a lot of pop hits and were on top of the pops and stuff. But
Yeah, I think I know.
yeah, but then
Yeah,
he
I think I know
used
the
the
music.
actually, I'd recommend. There's a trilogy of albums that Talk Talk made, beginning with a thing called The Color of Spring. The following one was The Spirit of Eden, and then there was The Laughing Stock. But my point being that he kind of he used his pop career and his success within that arena to propel him into a kind of a musical dream place, that and so yeah, and I just love people who take that route, who go from making a splash to just doing the thing that they want to do. And Scott Walker, I think, to me anyway, he's very much one of those people.
Oh yeah, like I think he probably has to be like the prime one of the prime examples of
Yeah.
people who, like, you can't say they didn't just follow what they wanted to do, you know. And I think like it's incredible to see the kind of the spectrum of music he made in his career, and the progression like that in itself is really fascinating, you know. And like that, obviously that's one of his soundtracks you just heard there, but like it, like if people haven't heard his singing voice, then like it's so different, and his
Hmm.
lyrics are so different.
Yeah.
And to have come from that kind of real like pop, like the Walker brothers, like it's mad, like that one person can occupy all of those like different styles and
Hmm. I guess
types of music, and it's
and
all sincere because that's obviously what he wanted to do. And like it is difficult to find examples of people who do that, who evolve so much throughout their lives, you know,
yeah.
and continue to want to make music, you know, and continue to be curious about it, like for their entire life. It's
Hmm.
very, to be honest, I find it really encouraging. Like, you know, if you're ever worried about like, you know, what if I get sick of it, or what, you know what I mean? Like I think it's an encouraging example as not just a musician, but any kind of a creative person, to
Hmm.
see someone do something like that, you know?
The commitment to the sound and to his belief in it, like to put himself, in his late 60s, as he was when he was making that there, to put himself right at the coalface making stuff like that. I mean, it's, as you say, it's very inspiring. And there aren't that many paths that are so profound all the way, that are just getting better. Did you have Cormac as your kind of the guided tour to the interior world of Scott Walker?
Of Scott Walker, yeah, definitely. Like
I,
he kind of talked to me about him a lot back then. And like yeah, like because he had just seen, what's the documentary called, is it 30th Century Man?
oh, okay, not seen it, but it's been recommended.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. And so he had seen that Cormac had. I always feel funny calling Cormac. We actually just call him Cos or Cozzy. So
Okay,
I'm just
yeah,
gonna,
yeah,
from now on, if I say Cos or Cozzy, that's who I mean.
yeah.
So yeah, Cozzy was like, got really obsessed with Scott Walker. But he's totally right though. You
He's
know, like
totally right, as usual.
he's
His his,
totally,
his
yeah.
Scott Walker dreams are fully justified.
Oh, totally, yeah, yeah. No, he,
Uh,
like, you know, he's always right.
I can't argue with you, Radie, on that point. But listen,
Yeah.
look, it's okay. We're getting through these, right? So, next one. can I just say, right, before we get into Enya, just a personal thing
Yeah.
is that it's undoubtedly a sort of a moment in music when and I was there when Orinoco Flow came out, and I remember being in, there was a record shop in Rathmines, the name escapes me, but they had a fantastic sound system. And, back in the day, going to hear records, it mattered that a record shop had a good sound system. But it was in there on a Thursday evening that I heard Orinoco Flow for the first time. Where were you when you first heard Enya?
I think I was now. I don't think I was alive yet.
No, you definitely
So
not.
yeah, I was born in 1987.
Hmm.
So I like, when things were actually coming out, I was too young, but or possibly not alive yet. I think one of her albums is definitely 1987.
Yeah,
But
it was that
yeah,
one. That one is 87 because that was the
yeah.
beginning of, yeah, anyway, I know it to be that time. Yeah.
But I actually can't remember the first time I heard Enya, but no, I
Actually, do you know what?
can't.
It was kind of a trick question. Sorry, being smart arse there, Radie. No, it was more. It was more like I wanted to tell my story about.
About
But
Anya.
I
Oh
will
no,
say though.
but that must have been amazing though to
Oh,
hear it
but
as like a thing
my,
coming out.
my point being, my jaw dropped. I was, what the
Yeah,
hell is that? That is unbelievable. Just that her taking the song form, and that she was probably familiar with through her family, and turning it into this just electronic dream. It was just insane. It felt like something from another planet via Donegal.
yeah, totally. Like it is its own genre,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is the hardest thing to do. Like
absolutely. It's
because
Enya
if you
music.
can, yeah, if you can invent a genre, then like you're probably a bit of a genius,
Yeah,
because like it's just so hard to do. And the thing about Enya is that like I think that Enya is going to be newly appreciated more in the next couple of years, because I
yeah.
think it's old enough now that people will kind of like maybe come back to it. Because I think what happens is people get a little bogged down with this whole kind of new age Celtic mysticism thing about Enya, which is, but it's fair enough, right? But music,
Yeah, it's definitely
it's
fair enough.
way more interesting than that.
Oh, it's
Now in fairness, because
way more
like
interesting. But yeah,
the track I chose, well, I love this track because it's kind of like dark Enya, right? So obviously, like I like kind of slightly kind of dark things, but also I think it's this one has no lyrics, so it's like
yeah,
you take away all that kind of like Celtic mysticism element, right? And you're just like, I think this is like a really interesting example of how you use a studio to make music as well, because it's all layers and it's all production, and it's like it's so fascinating because it is such a simple idea. It's just a hum, and then there's a bit of a slightly different bit where the chord changes, and then it's back to the same hum, and that's it. Apart from that, it is layers. It's all layers, and that's the thing that she did. But I also have to tell you that I really went, I went full Enya, um, where after lockdown happened, because I do sometimes listen to quite kind of like, stuff like maybe the Scott Walker thing that we just heard, or Karen Dalton, things with a bit of sadness in them or whatever. And I ended up one day, I was just really sad, and I was like, no, I'm getting out of here. So I just listened to Enya for the whole day, and it was wonderful. It was like a brain holiday. And I ended up looking into her loads because I was trying to figure out, I was like, did she do all this herself? And I found out that it's actually, she would say herself in interviews that like it's actually three people that did Enya as a person. So it's
uh,
her, and then a married couple, Nikki and Roma Ryan. So
hmm,
Nikki Ryan was doing sound engineering, producing it, and he was mad into all the Phil Spector stuff and the Beach Boys and the Beatles and all that kind of stuff, which makes sense. This all made total sense to me. And then his wife Roma was the one who wrote the lyrics. So it was a collaborative thing between three people. But what
hmm.
I found out when I was researching it, that I was like, go on, was that she made all her first demos in Artane, because she used to live in Artane.
Wow, wow,
Yeah.
I've seen her turrets in Dalkey, and I
I'm
just
from
can't.
Artane, sorry. I should clarify that I'm from Artane.
Yeah,
That's
right.
probably the most
So,
exciting thing that's ever happened in Artane.
and so she was living there. I mean, she was obviously originally from Donegal, so all of that happened in Artane. That's amazing.
Yeah. If
And
if you've never been to Artane, it's just you wouldn't imagine it would happen in Artane, for anyone who hasn't been.
um, what about the fact when you said I was that you were just said you were going to go full? I thought you meant that you'd been out at her gaff or she'd invited you there. Has anybody?
Oh,
One of the things I
no.
like is just the absolute sheer mystery of it. It's
She's a spectre. She's a ghost.
it's
Maybe she
all
lives
it's
in
all
another
dark, and yeah,
dimension. I don't
there's no light in on that thing. I love that idea. I don't know whether it was her house, but I will say that one day I was out walking in Dalkey, a beautiful day, and it could have been her house, but there was a house with two turrets. I wanted to be her house, and on both sides there was an actual poodle that looked like, as in identical poodles in each turret. And
know.
it was there that I invented a joke about the Orinoco overflow, but I won't tell you the joke. But anyway,
Piecing it together in my mind. Yeah.
what? But anyway, look, I mean, that part of it, that whole fantasy thing of like, does she actually exist? I think that's just wonderful, an amazing trick. And like, let's hear the music anyway, and we'll get back to talking about
Yeah.
it. That's Bodichea. And yeah, now that you mention it, Radie, that not a lot happens in there. Incredibly minimal piece of work, but like how
Yeah,
effective.
but incredibly full though as well.
Yeah,
And
no
it
arguing.
totally demonstrates that thing where she like it's a world. That is absolutely a world. Like,
Yeah.
that you step into. I should say as well, that's obviously the track that was sampled for the Fugees.
Oh yeah.
You can
Ready or
hide.
not, ready or
What
not.
it's called. Yes, thank you.
Ready or not.
Oh
Ready or
dear,
not.
yeah.
Okay. Oh.
I've heard those jokes before.
Oh, you've heard them before. Well, then I won't tell you my mountain out of a Knoll Hill joke later. So
Oh, I have also made that joke.
Oh my God. Live joke synthesizing. Really, oh, say, yeah, but it's a world, isn't it? I mean, our talk of planets wasn't misplaced. It's a kind of a planet, the Enya planet.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I love it. I think it's incredible, and that's a minimal uh, like example of it, like like for example the song Arnold Flow, and it's got all these like crazy like the big harps and the big
Yeah,
orchestral drums, and it's just so the scale is so big. It
yeah.
makes total sense when I read that Nicky Ryan was big into Phil Spector, because I was like,
Hmm.
this is Wall of
It
Sound.
is
It's
Wall
just
of
Wall of
Sound.
Sound with
Yeah.
synths and harps and weird drums, and like all the components are different, but like the concept is kind of like all the vocal layering and stuff. But it's just done. I don't know. It's just done so well. I
Hmm.
just think it's brilliant. I really think that there's going to be like an Enya appreciation revival sometime soon, and everyone will get really like there already is, but
Well,
you
I
know.
think financially the appreciation has been everlasting for Enya and her partners, but it's
Yeah.
more, I mean, it's really good to talk about it because there's a little bit of a thing with where it ended up, and it's good to
Yeah.
review it in such a way because,
Because I
it
think a
sounds
lot of people,
wonderful.
you know that film Intermission, and
Oh, but
Colin
yeah,
Meaney is in it, and he's there talking about artists like Clannad and Enya and stuff, and he's mad into Celtic mysticism, and it's kind of weird because he's like a detective. I think a lot of people actually kind of have it. That's all tied up in the view of Enya. They're like it's not cool or something.
yeah,
But it's like musically, it's fascinating.
yeah.
I think it's just brilliant. Yeah,
That's actually a great film. It was John Crowley made that Intermission. A
yeah,
really
it's
good
very
film.
good, isn't it? Yeah,
Um, so we'll move on, and we go from a mountain to a hill. So look, we're going to dramatically change course of direction now.
yeah,
Can I just give you a little bit of background, Radie, about Tony McMahon and Noel Hill?
yeah,
I'm sure you're familiar with the album in Knocknagree, but the place that I come from in Rathmore in Kerry, it's in the heart of Slieve Lucre. It's kind of crucially over the Cork border. But so there's three villages in that heartland: Rathmore and Guineaghquilla, which are both in Kerry, and then Knocknagree is in Cork. And Knocknagree is slightly higher up than Guineaghquilla, and sorry, both of them are on hilltops, but Knocknagree is slightly higher. And on frosty nights, all through the winter, on Sunday nights, I would hear the music from Dan Connell's at 5 miles, roughly speaking, and really clearly. And that was one of my kind of first, really, I mean, that's one of the first times I noticed music was it coming from the hill in Knocknagree. So, um, and when I was a student, then I used to go there, take photographs, did a project on Dan Connell's, and then years later discovered the magic of that album of Noel Hill and
yeah,
Tony McMahon and Knocknagree. And I suppose, yeah, so that's just kind of the background in terms of my own love for the music that they made.
yeah.
Was that your introduction to I mean, you must have played and met both men, I presume, but was that an album that was big for you as well?
Yeah, and it would have been played in my house. So the track that we're going to hear now would have been played like so much in my house by my parents, but I was actually taught concertina by Noel Hill. And this like I have to like I still find this just so exciting to listen to. And
Yeah.
I want when we were talking about formative tracks, like I needed to include this because I've never really like I kind of have mentioned that like I grew up playing concertina, and my family all play concertina and stuff, but I've never like made enough of like kind of
You
I've
never
had
made
various.
you never made a mountain out of a molehill.
I didn't, of course I didn't, but like
Sorry for
the way
interrupting.
like you have a kind of musical sort of tangents or like kind of offshoots you go on,
Hmm.
like and this is the biggest one I probably ever went on, was that my only musical ambition for years of my life was to be able to play concertina like Noel Hill. Like, I had nothing outside that. I had, nothing could be bigger than that for me, because I
Hmm.
started learning concertina, like maybe when I was maybe 9 or 10, and he taught me all through my teenage years, and also just tunes in general, because like people talk a lot, like a lot of time when I do people kind of talk to me about in interviews about, Lankum and all that kind of stuff. They tend to talk to me loads about singing. Everyone talks to me about singing. And like the thing, like, and I like talking about singing and stuff, but like I can't uh, understate or can't, sorry, overstate, complete opposite. Can't overstate how much concertina that was all that there existed for me for years. All I wanted to do is to be able to play like this, basically, like this track.
Yeah. Well, what a beautiful introduction. Let's hear it and talk some more. Oh, it's breathtaking.
It's just so exciting.
Yeah, it's so
Like,
bloody exciting. It's
yeah,
incredibly exciting. I mean, yeah, I want you to hear more about Noel Hill, Radie. Sorry, I've got something to say about the excitement factor, but I'll just after you tell me more about that amazing
about Noel
man.
Hill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just like a phenomenal player, like really I just think he's, a wonderful player, and he took the teaching really seriously, I have to say. It was a real
Hmm.
kind of like, and you'd be annoyed about it loads. Like he was so stern, and like Jesus, like all you wanted for years was just like, just tell me I played it well. No, just tell me once I played it okay. Like he was not big
Hmm.
on compliments, like he really made you like work for any praise you ever got,
For a reason. Yeah.
yeah, but the thing is, it works. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, 'cause if you get people who want to get that praise, you know what I mean? Like, it will kind of spur you on to do that. And like, I think that like he was one of the main styles of concertina just for so many years, and I think he really inspired a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
And um, like I thought it was a really good musical education to be taught by him. But I also like, it is tough. You just want him to tell you that you played it good.
Yeah.
But maybe I just didn't play it good enough. So
I'm sure he's very
that's
proud of
fair
you.
enough too. Yeah.
And with that system, Brady, are we talking about uh, the Willie Clancy being the hub of that, or had you access to him more than that? Obviously.
Yeah, so I used to go to him in Milltown, Malbay, and he'd always be giving out just being like, "Did you do your practice or did you just go swimming again?" Like, and he'd be like, "Oh, I didn't do my practice." But because I started going there like when I was about like, I was going to him there when I was probably about like 11 or something.
Yeah.
But no, I went to my dad used to drive me and my sister Quiva in to take lessons with Noel when he was still teaching every week in the Pipers Club
Oh yeah,
on
right.
Henrietta Street. Yeah, before like the building was falling down, and that was on Wednesday nights, and it was exciting stuff. We'd go in there and play the tunes, and then on the way home, every single time we'd try get him to buy us a Big Mac on the way home, um, from McDonald's in Airtown Castle. But yeah, we did that for years, And then my younger sister Sai was taught by him as well,
Hmm.
but we would have been in the class at the same time because she's a few years younger than me. But yeah, so all three of us actually got taught by him.
Did you
Um,
get to play with him in recently, or have you done that?
no, I haven't.
Yeah,
No, I haven't gone to play with him in yeah, years. I wouldn't even know how to tell you how many years. Yeah,
yeah. The years keep going by pretty fast. What
yeah,
about
they do.
the sound of the dancers in that, Radie, and in the
So,
Knocknagree record? I mean, just as a lover of dance music of all sorts, like what you say, it's so electrifying just hearing that sound crashing on the floor.
yeah, and they're really good dancers. Like
Yeah.
they're really good set dancers. Because actually, I think I might have a kind of like I have a nostalgia for that anyway, because I would have heard that music a lot when I was young. But my parents, before they actually played instruments, they were set dancers.
No way.
Um, yeah, yeah, they're both actually really good set dancers, and so that kind of reminds me of them. And in Milltown Malbay, apart from all the messing and sessions and music and stuff and carrying on, there's a load of Cayleys happen in Milltown, and they have full live Cayley bands play
Yeah.
amazing music, and all of the set dancers there are serious. Like you can't be going there and being like, oh, where should I stand now? Like they'll have none of you. It's like you
Yeah.
either know the steps or you don't,
Yeah.
and it's very like and my parents brought me there a few times when I was a teenager, and I'd dance with my dad, and he'd basically just like fling me around to where I wanted, like to where I needed to be, because I didn't know the steps, and he'd basically just like boss me around, and and so I get to join in, but like the level of dancing there is brilliant, and it's just
Yeah.
really fun, and they're all really into it, and it's not like what you a lot of the times when people think about Kayleys, you're thinking about like awkward teenagers being forced to dance with each other in the Gaeltacht, and
Hmm.
it's just not accurate. Like if
Yeah.
you went to one of these Kayleys, you'd actually want to set
You
dance.
never stop dancing. Can I
Yeah.
just tell you, Radie, a personal thing, but on the same subject of dancing? But I don't know if I don't think I told you this before. But my dad was also a committed set dancer, and
No
absolutely
way.
loved that. And for that reason, I mean, anyway, the way you grow up a teenager, I rejected that totally. But he actually died dancing a set, which is a tragic
Oh,
thing in 1986. But looking back, I mean, also an incredibly beautiful thing. But so I many years later, I still for many decades never really got into the music or felt the music, and then I'm in Glastonbury several years later, at whatever o'clock, and I'm in a field full of people dancing, and I for some reason talking to somebody just remember the fact that somebody used to tell me that like he used to go and cycle 60 miles to Fremont to go dancing. He never drank alcohol, would cycle home, would dance all night. And there was a connection there in a way that I kind of never realized before about, well, I mean, it was a different tune, but I'm definitely have the same commitment to the dance. And there
yeah,
began my journey back into the music that has led me to pray at the altar of the places that he used to go dancing in, and hearing that music for me, I mean, it triggers things for both of us, I think. But the sound of those dancers, yeah, incredibly beautiful and
yeah. A
meaningful.
world of memories, kind of.
Yeah,
Like
and
it's
yeah, and it never fails to revive that in a very powerful way.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's lovely though.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, look, come here. I'll move on to where we go next, right? Which is Radiohead, right? Where are we going? Oh no, actually no.
Yeah,
We're
or
going
yeah,
to the
whatever
Weeper,
you want.
chimney sweeper, isn't
The
that correct?
chimney sweeper. Oh yeah, Ernest Rogers.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you much about Ernest Rogers, really, right? Because it's impossible to find out about him.
Mm.
I just can't find anything about him. But I picked this track for a few reasons. So I only heard this a few weeks ago for the first time. And the person who showed it to me was someone who you're a big fan of. It was Andy the Doorbum.
Oh yeah.
And he's also the person who showed me the Mata La Pena compilation.
Thanks,
But
Andy. I'm not
yeah,
surprised.
Exactly. Oh, he's a great man. Like he makes great music himself. But he's also very good for just
Yeah.
talking to about music and getting kind of recommendations off. But so he was our driver and our support on that tour we just did,
Okay.
and so we got to spend loads of time with Andy, and we went on our days off. We went to Salem, Massachusetts, just because I don't know. I'm a bit of a ghoul, and I thought it would be good to go to Salem, Massachusetts, because of the witch trials. And so we all went there, and basically Andy showed me this song on the morning of what I would say is the last normal day I've had since then, basically, because I woke up in the house in Salem very hungover and heard some lovely music coming from somewhere, and I was like, and we were in this big kind of gothic house with like 2 staircases and stuff. It was really,
2
really old,
turrets.
historic house. Maybe Emmy's house. But
Stop that joke.
yeah. But so I went, actually I liked the tune enough that I went to try find who was playing, because I was like, that's lovely. I really like that melody. What is that? And I couldn't tell if it was coming out of a speaker or whatever. And I found Andy in one of the rooms, and he was playing it through his phone and singing along to the whole thing. He was humming along to the whole thing. So I made him play it for me another like 3 times or whatever. And it's just kind of a strong memory because, as I say, it was kind of the last normal day. Andy was there. Katie Kim had actually come to Salem to hang out with us. So she left us that day. And then later on that day, because we drove to Northampton, and that's when people started really talking to us really seriously about this corona thing. And we were like, oh, maybe we need to pay attention to this. And actually Kneecap, the rappers, were over in Northampton the same day as well. So we're hanging out with them that day. So it was a weird day, but it was a normal day for us. And it just kind of really stuck with me. And I love this song anyway. And Andy was explaining to me that it's basically it's from 1927. And it's the first song about opium. And it's a really sad song because it's like, this guy, Willie the Weeper, he's a chimney sweeper. So he's this kind of really like probably quite unpleasant job, and he has an opium addiction, and the whole song is about this really fantastical dream he has. Like obviously takes opium, and he imagines he's in it's like kind of really lush, like exotic and kind of a glamorous kind of world with the Queen of Sheba and all this kind of stuff. And then he wakes up and he's just, because the dope wears off, and he's just back in his life, and it's just really sad. I just think it's a really like it's kind of like a weird seductive song, and it's just really sad at the end. So that's
what an
this
introduction.
was kind of and I was listening to this all the first kind of couple of days when it was really starting to sink in that something big was happening and that we needed to get out of the country like now. So this was the soundtrack to the start of COVID for me.
Wow.
Have you ever heard about Willie the Weeper? Had a job as a chimney sweeper. He had the dope habit and he had his bad. Listen while I tell you about a dream he had. He went down to the dope shop one Saturday night. He knew the lights would all be burning bright. Well, I guess he smoked a dozen pills or more. When he woke up, he was on a foreign shore. The Queen of Sheba was the first he met. She called him lovey-dovey and honey pet. She gave him a great big automobile with a diamond headlight and a golden wheel. Down in Honolulu, Willie fell in a trance, seeing the dusky beauties do the hula dance. His sweetie got in jail and Willie sure did shout when he got the news that she had wiggled out. He landed with a splash in the river Nile, riding on a sea-going crocodile. He winked at Cleopatra, she said, ain't he a sight? He said, I bought a date for next Saturday night. Oh, he had 1,000,000 cattle and he had 1,000,000 sheep. Had 1,000,000 vessels on the ocean deep. Had $1,000,000 all in nickels and dimes. Well, he knew because he counted it 1,000 times. He landed in New York one evening late. He asked his sugar for an after date. Started to kiss her and she started to pout when bang, bang, and the door gave out.
Oh, that's such a haunting song. That's Ernest
Yeah, I
Rogers.
love
And
it.
yeah, absolutely. The idea of it being the soundtrack to the first few days of coming to terms with what was happening, really. Um, I was talking to Kevin Barry the other day, and he was saying that, music kind of changes the way you carry yourself, but sometimes life kind of presents yourself with these challenges where that's where music kind of comes in sometimes at those points, where it sort of informs some kind of bridge over to the next side, or in this case, I guess in your
Yeah.
case, it was just to get back home to safety while you were listening to this tune.
Yeah. And and kind of comfort and escapism, and it can have so many different functions. Music, like like it can be for enjoyment, entertainment, like to have a good cry, to comfort you, all this kind of stuff. So like that was one that I found very, very comforting in the first couple of days of it. But we had kind of a very funny time playing different soundtracks and also looking out the window of the van at the same time. So we'd like play like Blade Runner and like look out the window, and it's very like it was actually really funny. And then go back to being terrified. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
But like you can kind of, I don't know, it can be a way of dealing with things as well.
Sure,
Music.
coping mechanisms and all of that.
Yeah.
But Radie, let's move on to. I think I got the order mixed up, so apologies on that front. But
No worries at
one
all.
of the choices that I was looking forward to really talking to you about was Radiohead. So, do you want to tell me sort of why you chose that Mixomatosis?
Um, Yeah, so okay. So I think I have said a good few times how obsessed with Radiohead I have always been. I found there was a mixtape one of my sisters had made, one of my older sisters, and there was one Radiohead track on it. I think it was Paranoid Android, might have been Karma Police, I can't remember. And I was like, what the hell is this? I was
Uh-huh.
just like totally fascinated, and I kept stealing her tape and like running away to listen to it. I was so obsessed with it, and like that was when I was probably about 11. Also, like I think the first album I ever bought, like went in and like got the money and bought the album, was Amnesiac.
Oh yeah.
And it's just been a lifelong thing for
Jesus, in
me.
at the deep end there.
Yeah, but it also was like it kind of like grew up with me. So like it starts off like I also loved the Bends
Mm-hmm.
before that. Like so it starts off kind of like sort of not simple. It's well written music, but it's like
Yeah.
it's easier maybe to come at and appreciate. And then it was like they held my hand into this mad world. You
Wow.
know what I mean? Because I was so young
Yeah.
and like but it was gradual enough for me that I was like, oh my God, what is this? And also like still, in my life, if I hear something that I find confusing or I can't understand it, it totally just, I'm like, I must understand it. You know what I mean? Like I get really
Mm.
obsessive about it. So that's why I picked the track Mixomatosis, because that came out, I think in
Three.
2003.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would have been, I think, 16.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had already, because this is off Hail to the Thief, so I had heard, like, all Amnesiac, and, like that really made a big impact on me. So I had never heard Aphex Twin as well. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, you have to see that that's, like, if that's your point of,
Yeah.
that's your first point, it just blew my mind. And same with, like, so this track, I just thought it was a good example of, I remember hearing this track, and now as an adult, I can decipher I can decipher the sounds. I
Mm-hmm.
know that it's a synth making that sound, right?
Yeah.
And I do know that probably what I found so strange about it was the rhythm. So it's
Mm-hmm.
the vocals against that synth line is actually very unusual.
Yeah.
Um, and like, so I can understand it better now, but at the time it blew my mind. I was like, what
Yeah.
is this? Because to me, synths were like 80s pop. That's what a
Mm-hmm.
synth sounded like. I had no idea the scope of a synth as an instrument, you know.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was listening to basically, and
Yeah.
I was really obsessed with it. So it's just this is an example of like teenage me being like, what the hell is this? I must understand this.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story of 33-year-old me going, what the hell is this? I must understand this after we hear it. But this is in the incredible Mixomatosis.
The mongrel cat came home, holding half a head, proceeded to shut up to all his newfound friends. He said, I've been away, I slept with who I like. She ate me up for breakfast. She screwed me in a vase. But now I don't know why I feel so tongue-tied. I sat in the club, I wrote it down in me. They were cheering and waving, switching eyes sounded like when you mix some roses. Look out at a tiptoe, strangled, beaten up. Used as a photo in Time magazine, burning back, holding down. I don't know why I feel so tongue-tied. Don't know why I feel so skinned up. Like my thoughts are misguided and a little naive. I twitch and I salivate like with mixomatosis. You should have put me in a home, you should put me down. I got mixomatosis, I got mixomatosis. Yeah, I know I like a smart ass, but we all like stars. That wasn't my intention, I did it for a reason. It must have got mixed up, strangled, beaten up. I got mixomatosis, I got mixomatosis. I don't know why I feel so tongue-tied.
That's from Radiohead, Mixomatosis. It was a good title, I think, for just an outrageously challenging and brilliant tune. And Radie, I know, look, I don't want to steal your thunder here. It's all about hearing what you have to say. But there is a kind of a Radiohead story that I have, which is from around about that time. So from 1996, from OK Computer onwards, I was officially obsessed with Radiohead. And I'd gone to Glastonbury in 1995, which was a big turning point for me because, anyway, I'll tell that story another day. But 1995 was a beautiful sunny year. The following year was a fallow year. And then in 1997, they came back with that OK Computer show. And it was the worst ever Glastonbury in terms of weather. So I lost a lot of things, including a car and friends and everything. But so that's famously regarded by them as being one of the most difficult concerts they ever played. You've been there yourself. I think Johnny Greenwood is on record as saying that it was like being in a war because their monitors collapsed. All this sort of stuff
Oh
happened
God.
where they had an
Yeah.
absolute nightmare. But the story of their kind of return to Glastonbury is very beautiful because they came back in 2003 just after that record's been released, and so it was a glorious return. But in the meantime, my own Glastonbury story, I went every year for a long time and kind of regarded it as my Christmas, as important as that. So I so that year, I had kind of climbed up the Glastonbury tree of life in the meantime between 97 and 2003 to the point where by 2003 I was effectively supping from the Evis family farm milk cartons. And I had also, I knew a friend of mine, Brian Ormond, was the tour manager for Radiohead that year. So, to cut a long story short, they were playing on the Saturday night, and Brian had sort of told me, look, you don't have the official accreditation to go watch them from the side of the stage, but I can help you do that if you abide by the rules and do as I say. So I followed him through a number of gates, and he said, go into that porta cabin and wait, and then I'll get you before the show. And I went into the porta cabin, and there was sort of 4 or 5 people in there, one of whom had a cane, and he was the one who said hello, and he was Michael Stipe. So I ended up hanging out with them
What?
until showtime. Well, that's only kind of a sideshow Bob stuff. There's so many.
In
Look,
a in a porta cabin.
yeah,
In
and they
toilet.
had played the previous night. So, but look, the thing is, there's so many. I could drop so many names in this story that I'd have to employ somebody to pick them up, Radie.
Yeah.
But I won't do that, right? So the show was about to begin, and then Brian came back and sort of whisked us up to the side of the stage. So we're at the side of the stage. There's mayhem. It's like out front, we can see the whole thing from that perspective. And then I'm at the point where the stage turns into the back of the stage. So at
Yeah.
fever pitch, where it's like I'm sitting next to Mike Stipe, there's like the guy, Fran Healy from Travis, not the guy, Fran from Travis is on the other side. Lovely guy as well. Ended up playing frisbee with the sort of, anyway. But I'm talking to Michael Stipe, chatting to him, and I'm looking at what's going on as this crazy scene as the people await, hundreds of thousands of people await the band. And behind the screens where the backstage is, there's a table with a whole lot of candles. And around that, the 5 members of Radiohead are holding hands and hugging for an extremely long period of time, just at that fever pitch moment before they go on stage. And that image, I mean, anyway, it's something that really has stayed with me. And then throughout the gig, right? So the other thing is that at that point, he had, quite obviously loosened up an awful lot and had taken to dancing, and it was claimed and it was written that Michael Stipe had a key part in him kind of chilling out and going to clubs and getting into electronic music and stuff like that. So at times where he would do his dance, he would come over and kind of dance to Michael, who was like right next to me, and I saw that kind of, well, anyway, I didn't imagine it. This actually happened, but that kind of communication between the 2 lads at the key moment, I was there, man. So anyway, that's my Radiohead story.
That's really lovely to think of them all hugging
Isn't
around
it?
lovely
I knew you'd
candles.
like that. I think
That's really sweet. Like
it that,
I read an interview with Ed O'Brien in I can't remember which magazine out there recently, and he was just talking about like their relationship with each other, and I was like, that's just really beautiful. They just sound like they really
yeah,
care about each other.
that's the image of being able to see both sides of that. It was, I mean, there was something really powerful about that because, I mean, on the left hand side was like 100 and whatever thousand people smoking, crazy scenes of euphoria and
Yeah.
anticipation. And then just behind that was this incredibly calm and familial and beautiful thing. But I mean, I guess you're used to that being in a team yourself.
It's a very intense thing, yeah. Like it's kind of like being in a cult or something. It is
Yeah,
though,
sure,
like,
of course.
and also being in like the weirdest family in the world, and like I think the bond you form, because it's all to do with like it's high stakes. Like you're in all these like really high stakes
Hmm.
situations with each other, and you're also like with each other, like trying to communicate like really personal emotions and
Hmm.
like like kind of really cutting to the core of who you are, kind of thing,
Hmm. It's a high wire
So
act as such. It's, you're just so
yeah,
exposed.
yeah, oh, totally. And then the support is really intense then as well. So, like you're trying to, through the nerves, like support each other and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very intense, it's a very intense experience, and it can be intense in a bad way as well. Like it can be the same as a sibling relationship. When you fight,
Yeah.
you can really have roaring arguments. But yeah, like it is. It's a bit like being in a cult family.
Hmm.
But
I mean,
I
just,
miss my cult family a lot.
yeah, I'm sure you
Say
do,
so.
but just, I mean,
I just love to drink a pint of Guinness in like some nice pub with the lads and just get to give them all a hug
yeah,
and just have a bit of a mess and a laugh about like what's been going on.
yeah. And
Like just how are you? That's all I want to be able to do. Just have like
I
a really mundane chat with them.
I think everybody feels the same way in terms of, I mean, what it's taken away is just those basic fundamental things, which I suppose the only thing you could say would be that, I guess it's a chance to reset and to reassess just how valuable those incredibly
Yeah.
ordinary, simple things are. Just on the point of the pre-stage thing, Radie, um, you could identify with trying to kind of find some moment of calm. I don't want you to let us into your state secrets or anything, but do you always have some moment together before you go on stage, or is that something that's not possible to really organize?
We don't have like a set thing that we do, but we do try have in our dressing room, like whatever that situation is, it's basically just us in there,
Yeah.
because you just need a bit of calm,
Yeah.
before you go and do that, because your
Hmm.
brain, like, it feels like there's a fire alarm going off in your brain
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and so if someone's trying to talk to you about something. I remember Kazi, I did it because actually this will link into the last track. Kazi was backstage with me for I just on my own. I did support for Beak in February,
Yeah.
and I got really nervous because the solo gigs it's a different story nerves wise because it's all on me.
Hmm.
And Kazi was getting up and singing with me on Dark Horse and the Wind. He was backstage, and so was Spud because he was doing sound. And I was just about to go on stage, and like Kazi was asking me like, "What's the code for the door?" or
Oh,
something. He was
the
asking me to
eternal
like
button
remember.
factory problem.
Yeah, and I was like, I just had to say to him, and like Beaker in the room, I had to just be like, Kazi, I can't, like, that part of my brain has shut down completely. I have no idea what the code is,
Yeah.
because it was literally like a fire alarm was going off,
Yeah.
and I was looking at him like being like, you expect me to remember the door code? I can
Yeah.
barely remember my name because like I'm having
Extreme
a
terror.
flood of endorphins basically, or
Yeah.
whatever it's called, adrenaline.
Yeah.
um, but that's just, like in fairness, that is different to the Lankham gigs. I don't get the same sensation, like, because Lankham is like, because we do it together,
Yeah.
so it's like we're a team and we've done it a lot, and like there is support, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's support on stage for everything you're doing, for the music you're doing, for when you're talking, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's maybe why the solo gigs feel
Yeah.
so different to me, is that I'm used to that support, and then suddenly I'm like,
Did,
oh.
did you play team games ever, Radie? Like anything?
Oh,
Yeah.
sports. No.
No, 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 no. Because no, I'm not a
No, like I,
musician.
I am, I, the- I'm missing the component in my brain that you need
Oh
for
yeah.
to understand and appreciate sports.
Oh
I'll just be
Jesus.
honest
Well,
about
we
that.
won't
It
even go
makes me
there. But
feel like an alien.
my connection was that I'm not a musician. I've never been in a band. Probably, but the feeling of being there for somebody in a team, within a team. I mean, that's kind of the essence of sport. You don't have to know anything about the detail of all the stuff that completely infuriates and bores you. But the point of just being sort of like running along and being sort of ahead and taking the ball and putting it in the basket, something like that. In terms of the fundamental philosophy behind the whole thing is just to be there for the other members of the team. And I guess my analogy, my point being that it must feel great to have that sort of intense security and relationship with the other members, and for it to be working in such a phenomenal way.
Yeah, like when it's when it's all working well, and it really is. It's a very intense it's an intense bond. And then when it's not working well, or if you're not getting on that well, which does obviously happen, like I'm just going to be honest about that, like
Hmm.
that feels awful then, because
Yeah,
you want but I think generally, like we try mind each other, and we try be
yeah.
good to each other, and um, you know, yeah, just try make everything as easy as it can be,
Before,
because a lot of the stuff about the job is hard, so
yeah,
you need to be trying to make it easy for each other.
so hard. One thing before we just, while we're still on Lancome, Brady, that I wanted to just ask you about the role of Spud. I don't know if did Spud appear in your music theory book yet, but like it's something that when I hear the live long day, and when I talk about it, I mean it's a very key part of the development of your sound is Spud's part.
It's Bud, yeah. I think that's very, very true. And I have made a point of, like, whenever people have asked us about this album, I always bring up Spud, because
Hmm.
I think that, like, this is the first album that he's been on board from the get-go
Yeah.
with, like he recorded and mixed the whole thing. But yeah, like when we met Spud years ago now. It was for a television program, and he did a mix of the song Rosie Riley, which there are videos up, but it's not released on any album yet. But he basically managed to get this the big old Russian accordion thing that I play to sound kind of like we imagined in our heads, and
Yeah.
we were like, yes, like that, And from that point, we've literally worked with him from that point onwards,
Yeah.
because we felt that, like, what he was envisioning and what we were envisioning were converging well,
Yeah.
But he's also bringing his own world to it, which is really valuable, because, like, the last pick actually of track that we're hopefully going to play,
Yeah.
if there's time, is actually a band that Spud introduced to me.
Hmm.
And he's had a really good effect, I think, on my musical taste since I've met him. But in terms of, like, the band, like, he really is kind of creatively the fifth member of the band,
Hmm.
and he's invaluable in terms of creative input and just, like, making the things sound the way we've always wanted them to sound.
Hmm.
So yeah, like, he's produced loads of albums that I really love, like the Jimmy Cake and Katie Kim stuff and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So, like, he's bringing a whole world of experience to it as well,
Hmm. For
so
for me, that collision of the two worlds, because I knew your progression from the beginning of Lynched, and also aware of Spud's amazing work all the way back to when he
yeah.
began producing. But so it made sense to me from the outside, but it makes beautiful sense every time you listen to the record. And Radie, will we go on to the to Beak, who he introduced you to? This is the work of Jeff Barrow, the amazing Portishead man.
Yeah, and I was a bit torn as to whether I should play maybe a Portishead track, because we're talking about formative musical experiences, and I was listening to Portishead as a teenager as well. But I actually wanted to include this later one, because I actually just wanted to talk a little bit about things that have made me excited in the last couple of years. And Beak is definitely one of my main things that I have really kind of connected with over the last couple of years. The music makes me feel a lot of emotions, and also just because I wanted to say about them that I think they're just like an example of how am I going to put this, like, tasteful economic use of sound. There's
Hmm.
no faff at
Hmm.
all with Beak. It's like everything that's done has an impact, and like it should. Hmm. Oh, it's hard to explain. It's like there's no showing off really. It's
Yeah.
like everything is really, like, it has maximum impact, and it's like kind of a bit of a lesson in how, like, you don't need loads of things.
Yeah.
If you can do just these things really well and make them interact in this way, it has loads of
Yeah.
power. So I just think they're really interesting. And this track is a bit of an unusual one of theirs, because a lot of it is a lot more kind of experimental. A lot of it doesn't have vocals. It can be like a bit like, yeah, some of it's a bit like if you had conservative music tastes, you might be like, oh, this is a bit off the wall or whatever. And I love that they just then throw in this track, which is a real, well, look, we can do that too. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you want harmonies, we can do that. Oh, you want string sections, we can do that.
Here we go.
So it's just kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's lovely. So it's When We Fell. This is the sound of Beak.
When We Fall. Yeah.
With-
As we stand in line in the pouring rain, where the mist settles down on us all, with the sound of the children left behind, makes us choke on the fear even more. As the smoke becomes thick and all we can see is the flames and the fading forms. Return to the naked world we flee, with our medals still never worn. When we fall to the sea, and we will be assured. For what we believe can return to us all, to the will of a master's drum we strive, filled with hate that feeds for four, with the thoughts of the ones we left behind is enough to live for us all. When we fall to the sea, and we will be assured. For what we believe can return to us all. When we fall to the sea, and we will
at Speak When We Fall. And Radie, the gig was great, right? The live gig.
When we played in February.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, they're brilliant live.
yeah,
They're so good.
yeah,
Yeah, really like amazing musicians, you know. Yeah, they're definitely one of my favorite bands going these days, you
yeah.
know.
I mean, when you
Um,
there is, I think, I mean, it's very different, but there is, to me, there's a Jeff Barrow type of sound, and he's constantly kind of coming up with amazing things. But there to me, it's kind of linked to what he did with Portishead. I mean, I don't know, did you ever see Portishead live yourself?
I never got to see them live. Yeah, like there definitely is a link, and you know, like Billy, he's an amazing bass player. Like they were doing this kind of Instagram telly mashup thing. I don't know if you saw it at all. They were like basically playing like telly bangers. That's what it was called.
Okay,
They're
no.
playing like theme songs off TV shows. And yeah, Billy was playing like I think Mash or something, and I was like, why does this sound so good that I want it to be a song,
Yeah, right.
and I want to actually listen to it. I was like, Jesus Christ. And yeah, and then Will, the synth and guitar player, like they're really, really, really all brilliant. And I think it's one of those examples of like, uh, like just a combination making a whole new thing
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
of the three elements, you know.
Ray, do you see, and is Jeff a fan of your work too? Is that how it happened?
Um, so we played on the same stage as them in this Scottish festival called Down the Rabbit Hole.
Oh yeah,
Down the Rabbit Hole.
Dune.
Down is spelled weird though. Down the
Dune.
Rabbit Hole,
Yeah.
I think it is. And it was great. It was great crack. It was a really good festival, and I got to see Sister Sledge, and then went over and saw Beak and the
As you
lads.
do.
Yeah, well, that doesn't often
No,
happen.
that doesn't
You
often happen.
know,
That
that like
I
not only do you play a festival that you have
yeah,
people you want to see playing at it, but you actually have the time
yeah,
you
absolutely.
can go and see them.
Yeah.
So I was thrilled. And yeah, the lads at the end of the set, they were like, I was going over to buy vinyls off Beak anyway, because wanted them. And the lads were like, oh, just give them CDs. And I was like, that's really embarrassing. And they're like, just give them CDs. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And I think Dara basically he told me what's what. He was like, give them the CDs.
Yeah.
So I just went over and I was like, okay, fine.
Dara style.
Yeah, and I just was like, please just take these off me so my bandmates they can't give out to me basically. Like I did what I said I would do and just sell me this vinyl, please. And like went off, and then like a couple of months later, like they obviously had listened to them and liked them, and
Great.
which is cool. And then they invited us to play at this thing they do called Beakender in Leeds.
Uh-huh.
So we got to go and play that and got to see them 2 nights in a row, and they did really different sets both nights. So that was amazing. So it was like watching one really big, long Beak gig. But yeah, they're great people, you know, and yeah, they've been very sound and complimentary of our work, you know, and
Hmm.
obviously then they invited me to come and play on my own for them in the Button Factory in February. So that was really flattering, you know.
I'm really glad to hear that Jeff Barrow is a cool guy because I'm a huge fan.
Oh yeah, no, they're all amazing, and I love that when you're a big fan of someone's music and then you meet them and they're just like
Yeah. An extension.
like a sound person,
Yeah.
and
Unaffected.
their intentions are good, and
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of for me, it makes me like the music more,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
you know.
absolutely. I mean, you would make excuses if they weren't, and obviously we do all the time, but it's lovely when it's a nice note to bring the conversation, really. Um, just on the point when you're currently when you're working away at home, like there's things that you're just playing as well, or are you writing a bit too, or is there it's just kind of early stages in that department?
For the stuff I'm doing at the
Yeah.
moment. Um, yeah, like a combination of a load of different things. So I'm currently getting what I need to be able to record decent demos at home
Hmm.
and to do layering at home. So I'll be kind of working on stuff like that. And yeah, I've been just working on stuff for solo live shows, but also like with the hope of maybe getting to record at the very least maybe an EP or
Hmm.
something
Yeah.
over the next while. And that's been all kind of arranging, practicing, bit of writing,
Yeah.
a bit of yeah, just like thinking about textures and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been really interesting, and I can't wait until I get set up to try do a few layers.
Yeah.
That would be good. Yeah.
Well, good luck with all of that, and thank you so much for your. I mean, I asked you for an hour of your time. You gave me way more than that, and Radie, it's
Sorry,
been.
it's probably way too long.
Oh, it's just perfect. But look, the thing is, right? It's been so great listening to this music and chatting to you about it. So we'll have to do this again, Radie. But greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
And I'm going
Thanks
to
for having
play out with anyway, "Ode to Lullaby" from the amazing "Live Long Day" by Lancome. Thanks again, Radie.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you.